You maniacs. You knew it. You knew it would be out again. Here's your look at the brand new NECA Toys Planet of the Apes Gorilla Soldier Ultimate Action Figure. More brutish by nature and heavily armed, the soldiers of the guerrilla army strictly enforce law and order in ape society and guard against threats from the forbidden zone. Punishment comes swiftly for lawbreakers as well as for any wild humans caught stealing ape crops. Figure comes included with machine guns, clubs, snare stick, interchangeable heads, removable backpack, and bandolier. It's a madhouse I tell you. But maybe though British pop singer-songwriter Seal was right when he said, we're never going to survive unless we get a little bit crazy. I bet you we're going to get really crazy when we get down to the details on the Planet of the Apes Gorilla Action Figure from the courtesy of the folks over at NECA Toys. I can't believe though I've referenced not only the 60s Planet of the Apes, but also a line from one of Seal's songs. That's what we do here on this channel. Let's, though, take the tape measure and see how crazy, though, things get. Now, this is actually going to be using the same body as the original Gorilla action figure that we've gotten from Planet of the Apes. I'll show you guys that in a second. He's going to still stand the same at 7 inches in height, or about 18 centimeters tall. Speaking of NECA, by the way, I'd like to thank the folks over there that did provide this sample we could have a look at. As mentioned already, though, this is using, yes, the same gorilla body and the head for that matter as the original gorilla that we've gotten from Planet of the Apes, although this one here has slightly looser ankles. I haven't had these guys out on display for a long time. Other figures we can also bring in as well. Here's Dr. Zaius. Now, we're actually already going to be getting a Dr. Zaius as part of this new release of Ultimate Action Figures. And while I don't have those Zero's going to be part of that wave, I do certainly have Cornelius. I was kind of looking online, too, and the prices of what these things are going for now. I think Cornelius on his own, if you can get him sealed, is going for like $150. Talk about crazy. Promise, by the way, this is the last time I'm going to say crazy. Look at the crazy amount of accessories that come included with the Gorilla Soldier. The figure, though, does come include with some things that already were packed with the first release Gorilla. Like, for example, the figure does come include with a rifle. I wanted to bring off the rifle here. I think I have most of the accessories from the original Gorilla. And you can see, though, that the rifle seems to be exactly the same. At least casting-wise, it's exactly the same if I just get the blasted strap out of the way. Yeah, the molding seems to be the same, although the original one, the one on the top here that I'm waving around frantically, that was all cast here in black plastic. Maybe the new one that we're getting here is also cast in black plastic, but they've painted very nicely in chestnut brown. It does have, of course, a shoulder strap, so you can strap this around the shoulder of the Gorilla Soldier if you certainly would wish. You can also crisscross applesauce and also just match it with the bandolier angle as well. Maybe I'll just do that as well. You know what, let's fix the matter here. Just basically bring this around his head. The plastic, at least for the strap, is soft enough that you should be able to stretch it. The figure also does come include with a baton. Now, the first one that we did get here, and I want to make sure I've got them. Is this the right one? I don't think it really matters. They seem to be, again, exactly the same. You actually get two versions, two different batons here. The clubs themselves do have a little ringlet here down below. The original one also had this as well. The top one is the original one. I want to make sure I'm keeping track of everything. And the bottom one, do I have the right ones? Yeah, the bottom one here is the newer baton. There is a couple of variations, though, to it. So you can see, if you look at just the ones that are coming included with the Ultimate release, there's a little more of a narrower baton or club. And then there's a wider one as well. Depending on which one, I guess the Gorilla Soldier would like to use to start clubbing the wild humans. And let me tell you, there's plenty of wild humans around. The thing that's neat about this, though, is like with the original one, if you just kind of move the arm out of the way, there's a hook right here on the end of the bandolier. The original one had this as well. So you basically just take yourself that little ringlet and you fit it. Oh, you need good eyes for this. Luckily, I'm eating still a lot of carrots, so I think my eyes are still pretty good. Plus, I also like to think, too, Canadian reviewers, I think we have better eyes. Ooh, I shouldn't be saying that. If I can get that now on here. There we go. All right. So you put the little baton there on the side. Let me just scratch the record of what I said earlier about good eyes on Canadian reviewers. Anyways, though, you can see, you can take the baton. You can also do that with both clubs, by the way. It's just really hard, though. I mean, like, look at the size of that hook. Look at what little we have to work with when it comes to the size of that ringlet. Let's get that off, though, at least right now. Just drop the other baton. I keep calling these batons. They're technically called clubs. I think baton sounds a little bit more polished to myself. But yeah, you get two of these. And one of them, at least, probably this one, is the like-to-like, club-to-club. These are the closest ones in comparisons. And again, you just get 2 variations of those. The thing that's really neat about this is not that he necessarily comes with a swappable hand. I mean, I guess that is neat. One thing, though, is that I wish that he actually had 2 of these. He has these wide gripped hands, I think, for holding the understock of the gun, which is fine and good. But I think, though, like if he has 2 gripping hands, that would be perfect for having holding 2 different accessories. With the way that the hands are sort of designed now, you have one wider hand, which again, like, is no fault at all. I mean, it's certainly suitable best for like holding like the rifles and stuff because they have a wider handle. But then he's also got pretty much that same idea on the other side as well. I think really it could have benefited this figure from having like a pair of these. So then you can have him holding, like, for example, the snare on with both hands. Did you just say snare? I did say snare. One of the things that are new, though, with the Ultimate Release Guerrilla Soldier is the fact the figure does have a snare. It starts, though, at the bottom when you get this out of the packaging like this, but you can actually just bring this up. If you had yourself a tailor, what's the likelihood we're ever going to be getting some of these humans? If you had a tailor, for example, that could just like hook around Taylor's neck, and then he doesn't really like that all that well. But I like the idea that this does actually move back and forth. This is using, though, a real cording, so you don't have to worry like it's plastic, for example. Plastic probably would snap. A real cord certainly has a lot more give. I love the idea that this can swivel back and forth. This probably will end up being the thing I'm going to display the figure with. Now, I already talked about the fact the figure does have a rifle. He does technically also come included with another machine gun. This was, I don't think, packaged with the original one, or if it was, I probably have already lost it. But it's cast basically in the same, that chestnut brown. Really looks good. Again, you've got yourself a little clip. It's not removable or anything like that. And more likely than not, this is the reasoning why the hands are as wide as they are. Because if you look at the hands and then you look at the handles, I mean, he clearly needs to have wide hands to accommodate holding the rifle or machine gun in his hand, just like that. Lastly, I shouldn't say lastly, because he also has a couple of swappable heads. Lastly, let's get first of all the rifle and move it off to the side. He does also come included with a backpack. Again, first time I think we've gotten this accessory with these figures. Unfortunately, disappointing, though, that the front of this does not open up. Had this been something that could have opened up like what we got with the Dungeons & Dragons backpack, where you could actually have stored some of all of those accessories sprinkled over there, that would have been perfect. That this could have been a storage space to hold all of those. But what you do get, though, is a decent-looking backpack. Got straps on the side, and then you got this strap in the middle here that's supposed to go around his waist. There's a hole right here, and then there's a peg right there. And if you meet them right in the middle, connect the two together, you can strap that around his waist. I'll show you guys all that near the end of this review. Lastly, though, the figure does come included. This is the part that's lastly. Lastly, he does come included with 3 interchangeable head sculpts. Wait, you're only seeing 2. Well, he technically has one already on the end of his neck. The thing that's weird about it, though, is that the head sculpts aren't that much different from one another. If you look at basically the one he comes out of the packaging with, he has generally more coarser fur, so that's right away one indicator that you can see there's a difference between the two. The thing that's also the most obvious is that if you're looking at them as well, yeah, it's mostly just the fur. The thing that's maybe less obvious, I should say, is look at the mouth. The mouth is sort of the thing that tells you that there's a little bit of difference between them. This has a little bit more of an open mouth, just a little bit, though. Keep in mind that these were all masks, by the way. We didn't have CG back then. So when they were talking, you barely could see their mouths moving. So there's a little bit of a mouth that's open here. And then you got a little wider of a mouth that's open here as well. It's just a matter of which one you would like to display the figure with. Now, I actually do like the coarser-looking fur on the stock head sculpt. But I do like, though, the open mouth on maybe like this one here. One good thing about this, though, is that because it is using the exact same figure as the original one, it's using also the exact same ball joints, too. Now, to be fair, though, I had a hard time getting the head sculpt off. I did pop it off, but unfortunately what popped off as well was the other end of the ball joint. Realistically, though, this ball joint should have still stayed in the neck, and then the top of the ball joint would have been the part that I would have wanted to show you. But, though, I mean, once you heat this up, though, it does look like they are using the exact same heads. So you could really, I mean, if you have already the original figure, change it out, though, to one of the newer head sculpts. So there is then a little bit difference between the figures, the original one, and the newer Ultimate release. By the way, though, I mean, just stock out of the way they are out of the packaging, there are some notable differences between them. One of the biggest and more obvious ones is the fact that the bandolier is a different color. The new Ultimate has a more lighter tan color bandolier, whereas the original one kind of had it a little bit more of a darker brown. They seem to be using the same sculpts, not only for the bandoliers, there's what it looks like on the back as well, and they both still, by the way, have hooks. The new bandolier, though, would have had only the hook down below here painted in a lighter silver. The other one, if I move this out of the way, the original one would have actually colored this darker at the top here, where this attaches to the rest of the strap. So there's a little bit of differences there, too. Now, too, being that these are also looser pieces, you don't have to commit to the idea. If you like, say, the original one and you have the original one, easily you could just move this one over, or because, again, like they're not that much different from one another, just change the head that you want to then use, and maybe even add the new head sculpt to the original figure. Vests seem to be the same. The coloring of the purple isn't that much different, although the new one, obviously, there's a little less sheen. The original one, the purple was certainly there, but it does look like there's a little more of a shinier paint finish to it. They went with more of a matte finish. In fact, actually, kind of, if you look at the purple, it looks almost to be like a little more of a metallic finish, like a little shinier silver that they've added to it. I do think, though, the newer one has it more, I think it has a better looking paint job, honestly. Going with more the approach of matte purple, I think works a little bit better for the figures. Boots look very much similar to one another. There's a little more brown, I would say, to the original release, and a little less brown, and a little more of a like a darker, I would almost even say like a blackish, maybe silver. The soles are exactly the same. They both have peg holes in the bottoms of their feet as well. This one, by the way, though, even you can also tell, too, that they are using the same mold as it's printed on the bottom of the foot as 2014. So we're looking at a figure that's, what, 11 years old? 11 years old. But it still retains. I mean, it goes to show, like, just because the figures are that old, mold-wise at least, if they were just as good before and they had still the same amount of articulation, where like the original figures, maybe like we're talking way long a time ago, would have only maybe had just a single hinge in the elbow, in the shoulder area here, and nothing in the elbow, then I could certainly understand why they would need to upgrade the figure to give some new articulation points. Being that the original figure already had elbow hinges, shoulder hinges, and all the things that we get now with new Ultimate figures, can't see again why they would have felt the need to change anything to the original gorilla when the original gorilla was perfectly fine. For the figure's articulation, though, starting again with his head sculpt, it does rotate back and forth. It does go up and certainly goes down, back and forth as well. Whether you want to use, though, this head sculpt or, you know what, let's just change out the look of this for right now. And also, too, while I'm removing the head, you can see there's a ball joint at the base of the neck. So, like, there's decent stuff going on here, although the neck is a little tighter here. We're going to go ahead and just attach the new head in place. Now, again, this would be a time if you wanted to remove the bandolier. Do it now. Do it now before you start adding new heads. Sort of just hold on to it, at least for right now. And if you may need to heat this up a little bit with hot water. I'm not doing that right now. I may do that maybe when you get to the final looks of the figure. But basically, that's the new head sculpt, or at least one of them at least. See, there's just a little space right there. So the gorilla must be talking. Anyways, though, the arms do rotate all the way around. Same with the original. You also get a full T-pose with both the arms. The figure does also have only just, again, a single hinge in the elbow, but it allows their arm to rotate all the way around. He does have a swivel here in the hand. It rotates back and forth. The upper torso, while this still being contained in a softer plastic, has still retained a full ball joint, so you can rotate that all the way around. The original figure had that as well. Legs split out. This one leg is a little tighter on mine, but you can still get a full split. Oh! Wait, that's more like a wolf than less a gorilla. The legs go forward, the legs go back. A little bit of a swivel there at the top of the thigh goes a long way. There is certainly a bend down below in the knee. The lower leg does rotate. Nothing, though, in the boots. The boot is just a continued sculpt from the rest of the calf. The ankle moves up and down, rocks back and forth. No toe articulation, but the figure's never had toe articulation in the first place. Being that now we have 3 alternate head sculpts, even though, again, to be fair, like the head sculpts are so close with one another. Even just to look at the original one, the defaulted one, and then to look at this one, probably the most obvious thing that you would notice right away is that the fur seems a little bit smoother. So maybe he's more of a palace guard, and he's one that goes out in the wild and starts to snare and capture all those escaped humans. But again, I do like the idea that they gave us different head sculpts. I mean, the fur being the one big thing that makes these unique to one another. So it does mean that if you happen to have the original gorilla soldier, you can change around the head sculpts. I mean, look at what I've just done right now. You can also even remove the bandolier to make them even different from one another. And of course, let's bring in the other figures. Now, we are getting already a new Dr. Zaius, which I would imagine is probably just going to be the same Dr. Zaius as we've gotten before. The one that kind of has me the most interested, we actually have 2 ones that I don't have in my collection right now. A General Ursus, which we will be getting as well, and a Zira. Looking forward to getting a Zira because I already had a Cornelius, and if you're going to have a Cornelius, you need to get a Zira with that as well. I did promise, though, I was going to show you guys how to install the backpack onto the body of the guerrilla soldier. So let's go ahead and do that right now before we jump to the rotisserie. The thing that's very crucial, though, is when you add the backpack, though, you have to really remove the bandolier. Even images, though, on the back of the box of the guerrilla soldier show really when he has the backpack on, the bandolier isn't on there. So again, because this is a separate piece, you easily can just remove it. So let's go ahead and first just detach the head that we were currently using. I'm sure with this head too, being that we started the review with the defaulted head, I'm going to probably end up using this one when we jump over to the turntable. So let's go ahead right now. We'll just remove the head from the guerrilla soldier. A little harder, of course, to do. And we'll also go ahead and take off the bandolier because, again, this is a separate piece. You could try your best to really put the pack on there and then put the strap around, but with the bandolier really in the way, especially this pocket right here, this is really always going to be the thing that's going to end up popping off the strap. So you could either choose to put the backpack on now without the head sculpt, but it doesn't really change really much matter anyways, so let's just pop the head back in place. I want to make sure, of course, we get it all the way on there. I probably could have easily heated this up a little bit with hot water, but unfortunately I didn't. So let's just bring the arms back a little bit. It's like dressing a small toddler. We're going to bring, of course, the arm straps on there as well. And we're just going to do our best to shimmy them up the arms like this. And just kind of bring the elbow in just a little bit. Just a little bit. The plastic, at least for the straps, is soft enough. Once you really get it over one arm, it's so much easier to get it around the other. Then attach it on the back of his body like that. Now, again, like if you had the bandolier still on there and you wanted to try to fight to get the strap on there, you're going to have a hard time getting this part right here attached. There's just too much extra bulk. So again, one thing that's neat about it too is being that the bandolier is a separate piece. You can have your guerrilla soldiers looking very different from one another. So let's just bring this around. And with so much more now slack available here, it's a lot easier to plug it in place. So again, you've got your hole, you got the peg on the other side. If I get my blasted finger out of the way, and we'll just attach the strap like this. Now, it's not to necessarily ensure that this is still going to stay in place. Every once in a while, though, as you are kind of rotating the figure around or even just like touching the side, sometimes it ends up just popping this off in the process. But you're probably going to have a lot easier of a time if you choose to leave the bandolier off, which again is one of the cool things, though, I like about the guerrilla soldiers is the fact that there's so much mix and match compatibility with it. Being that you already have, if you already have, for example, the original Planet of the Apes Guerrilla Soldier, you could keep the bandolier on the one and then leave it off on the other one here and then have this one with a backpack instead. Despite dusting off, when you think about an 11-year-old mold, I think the Guerrilla Soldier here from Planet of the Apes is just as good as some of the Ultimate figures that we're getting in the market now. It goes, though, to show that if it wasn't really broken in the first place, why feel the need to fix it? I mean, it had still all the same levels of articulation that come with Ultimate figures now, and the sculpt was still just as good back then. If anything, NECA has only beefed up the box with extra accessories. So instead of having just a single head before, and then a club, and then, of course, the rifle, now they give you all those same accessories again with 2 additional brand new head sculpts and a whole slew of new accessories. It means, though, that if you were lucky enough to get your hands on the original Guerrilla Soldier, you can easily then use the parts that come included with this figure, because there's no real way at all that this Guerrilla Soldier is going to be able to hold all the accessories that he has anyways. The snare, for example, is one I'm going to display, I think, with the bandolier version of the Guerrilla Soldier, and now that I've stripped down the bandolier on this guy to have the pack on the back of his body, this is going to be more like a grunt or lesser ranked Guerrilla Soldier I'm going to put on the shelf along with him. Even though I kind of made the mistake at the beginning of this review of trying to put the pack on the front of his body or on the back of his body with the bandolier on the front, it really, though, benefits this figure to have the bandolier off altogether, because then you're not going to have any issues at all with the waist strap attaching properly to the side of the pack's strap. I do wish, though, that the pack could have been openable so you could have actually stored some of the accessories inside. I mean, with not having the bandolier, there's no real place to have the club, but technically he does also have another hand, so he could always really hold the club in his other hand. The one only other thing I would have liked to see this figure get released with, speaking of hands, is another gripping hand. He has wide gripped hands when you get him out of the box. He only has really one smaller gripped hand for holding like the baton and the snare. Had he only just come with one being a mere flip of that, so he could have actually had gripping hands on both the sides of the figure's body. Still, though, I'd like to thank the folks over at NECA that provided the sample of the brand new Planet of the Apes Guerrilla Soldier that we had the chance to have a look in this review. Being a big fan of Planet of the Apes, especially the OGs, the classic ones, where everybody was still wearing a mask, you could barely hear what they were saying, I am super thrilled the fact that we're going back to the franchise again. Not only are we getting here the Ultimate Guerrilla Soldier, but they have also already announced that we're going to be getting a Dr. Zaius, a Zira, and a General Ursus, all advertised on the back of the box. Yes! What do you guys think of this figure? Let me know down below in the comments section. Did you guys already have the chance to pick up the first wave of Planet of the Apes figures from way back in 2014? And how excited are you now that we're getting Planet of the Apes figures again? If you guys did enjoy this video, you can do it a solid and throw it a like. You guys want to stick around for more so? I hope so. Hit that subscribe, turn on that bell, and of course come back. As always, thanks for watching. See you guys next time.